Here we're going to look at topic 90, example 1, use properties of exponents. The question is, how can you rewrite each expression using the properties of exponents? And the properties are right above here. So we have our 5 properties: product of powers, quotient of powers, power of power, power of product, and negative exponent. So it's going to be important for this topic that you are familiar with these 5 properties, and you'll get some pretty good practice on how to apply them. So in 90.1 part A, we have similar bases, not similar, they're the same. So the bases are both 81. So what that allows me to do is, since I'm multiplying the bases, I can take my exponents and add them up. Let me actually write that a little larger so we can see that more clearly. So we'd have 81 to the 5/6 power plus negative 1/3, which you could change to obviously minus 1/3. You don't need the plus minus, but let's work with that. I'll show all the steps here so we don't cut anything out. The better you get at this, some of these steps you will be able to eliminate. So I need common denominators. I am going to change this to a subtraction sign. So a common denominator would be 6, and the second fraction, instead of being 1/3, I would change to 2/6. So subtract here, 5 minus 2 would be 3. I'd have an exponent of 3/6, which quite easily reduces to 1/2. And then we never want our final answer in fractional exponents, so we're going to rewrite this in radical form. And the square root of 81 we know is 9. Okay, so this would be our expression rewritten using properties. Now, obviously, since it's all numbers in this example, you could just type this into the calculator and figure out what the value would be, but we are looking to practice our properties of exponents. So that would be part A. Part B, I'm going to show you 2 ways to do part B, and I want you to notice that there are usually going to be multiple ways to do these problems depending on what properties you apply first. So looking inside the parentheses, we want to make note to ourselves that that y is with the 3rd power, that x has a power of 1. Okay, that 3 only applies to the y. So one of the properties that we can look at is if you are raising powers to powers, those powers can be multiplied or distributed in. So what we would have is we would have x to the 1 times 2/3, y to the 3rd times 2/3, and that would all be over x to the 1/2 times 2/3. So in powers to powers, you are multiplying. So this 2/3 is being multiplied to each of your exponents inside the parentheses. So when you're multiplying and cleaning that up, we have x, this would be to the 2/3 power. Then we have y, 3 times 2/3, that would be 6/3, or just 2. So we would have y squared. And in my denominator, when I multiply these, I would have 2/6. So I'm going to write that, but 2/6 will then reduce to 1/3. So we're going to change that to 1/3. All right, so that's our first, or I guess our second step, multiplying those. From here, we want to notice or note that we have an x value in the numerator and denominator. So our next property would be a subtraction property here. All right, so I'm going to unhighlight those. So we would do x, wrong marker. We would do x to the 2/3 minus 1/3, and then the y squared would just come along. You can't do anything else with that. So 2/3 minus 1/3, that would be x to the 1/3 power, y squared. And again, we never want to leave these as fractional exponents, so we would rewrite that as the cube root of x times y squared. And for standard practice, we should put the y squared first. Okay. Now, is that the shortest of methods? No. As you get better at this, you will be able to eliminate some of these methods, so it might save you a little bit of time. Sorry, not eliminate the methods. You might eliminate some of the steps, the work that you have to show, but you'll get the hang of it. Now, your other option in solving this problem. First, we applied that kind of distribution property, powers to powers, and then we did the division. What we can do instead if you wanted to. So let's start with our problem. So we have here x to the first, y to the third, over x to the 1/2 power, and all of that is raised to the 2/3 power. You could subtract first, so you could do the x minus the 1/2 times 1/3, and then raise that to the 2/3 power. So what I'm looking at here is I'm combining these two to start, and that's where I get this from. You would then have x to the 1/2, right? Because 1 minus 1/2 is just half. And then y to the third to the 2/3. Now you can distribute that in. So x to the 1/2 times 2/3 and y to the third times 2/3. This would leave us with x again to the 2/6 power. 2/6 would reduce to 1/3, and y would be to the second power when multiplied out. So we change this to the cube root of x times y squared, and again, standard practice tells us that we should put the radical behind the term outside the radical. So you wind up with the same answer. In this case, you can apply the powers to powers property and then the quotient property first, or you could switch around and do the quotient property first and then the powers to powers. Just know that if you follow the rules with the properties, you should get the right answer as long as you're careful. Take your time and don't try to rush through these problems. All right, that's it for example 1. We'll be back in the next video to look at example 2.